Good news, everyone! It's Ruff here, and last time on the countdowns, we counted down my top 10 favorite vehicles in The Simpsons Hit and Run. You would think that logically the next countdown I would do would be about episodes from the show, and if you think that,
bite my shiny metal ass.
That's right, because last time I also said I'd be covering one of my favorite things of all time, and while I like The Simpsons, Futurama is my all-time favorite show ever. From the instant I saw it as a kid, I became hooked. Even though it had already been canceled, I would watch and record every episode I could in syndication until I got every episode on DVD. I still own the entire original run of the show on DVD, and all of the movies leading up to its return when it got picked up back on Comedy Central.
Dork alert!
So being that Futurama is my favorite show ever, I decided that this countdown will go up to 20 so I can give praise to some of the best episodes of TV ever written. There's so many that I love that didn't even make the list. I could seriously go on and on about how much I love the show, and eventually, I will. But today, we're doing 20, so sit back, relax, as I welcome you to the world of tomorrow! Number 20. The Bots and the Bees. Something Futurama does really well, possibly more than any other show in its genre, is mixing its hilarious comedy with some of the most touching stories you'll ever see. This episode is an excellent example. After the new soda machine robot Bev and Bender have a rough night of robot lovin', the robot gives birth to Bender's son, Ben.
Wipe my tiny metal ass!
At first, Bender struggles with raising a child because, as we've seen, he isn't really the fatherly type.
Here you go.
But then everything changes when Bender discovers that Ben gets a great joy out of his bending. They find that as Ben grows up, he and Bender grow a bond over their mutual love of bending. It's really touching to see Bender emotionally bond with Ben and truly come into his own as a great father. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tries, Ben is unable to bend, even though he dreams of becoming a great bender just like his dad. The professor finds out that the only way for Ben to bend is if he gets a bending chip installed. Knowing that Ben would want to achieve his dreams at any cost and wanting his son to live his life to the fullest, Bender regretfully allows the professor to go through with the procedure. John DiMaggio gives one of his all-time performances as Bender, conveying so much emotion, possibly the most ever in this role.
Just remember, your daddy loves you. Remember that, will you, son? Remember that.
This moment really got the tears flowing the first time I ever watched this episode. Many Futurama episodes do that to me, but this one in particular hits hard because you truly get a feel for Bender's bond with Ben. Bender's whole arc throughout the show is him trying to find purpose, and you see he finally finds it with Ben, but it's ripped away when his memory is lost.
I never knew my father.
Still, the episode ends on a happier note as Ben and Bender share a final laugh on their way to bending school as Frye gets electrocuted. Hey guys, it's Ruff here to remind you to subscribe and hit the bell as well if you've enjoyed this video and want others like it. Also stay tuned for more Let's Plays as well as video game reviews and ranking videos that are planned for the future. I've done hundreds of videos, so there's gotta be at least one that you'll like. Thanks for watching. Number 19. The Late Philip J. Frye. This is one of 2 Futurama episodes to win an Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program. This episode follows the journey of Frye, Bender, and the Professor as they hurl through time in the Professor's forward time machine.
Time? I can't go back there!
However, the main problem that Frye is facing is that he is late for everything, including dates with Leela that she is getting fed up with. Before his date that night, he and the guys accidentally go much further ahead in time when testing the time machine and find themselves thousands of years into the future. One half of this episode explores all the possible futures that will take place in Earth's history, while the other half illustrates how Planet Express prospers and thrives with Leela assuming command of the company. Since Frye's disappearance and supposed death, she has resented him for years and years, thinking he stood her up to go to a party.
Everywhere I looked, there were piles of bodies.
and then the explosion struck.
The gang go through the future to try and find a backwards time machine, having almost no luck with the errors they run into. A time travel montage set to the song "In the Year 25, 25, 25" is a very memorable part of this episode where, among other circumstances, they run into a world where humans are enslaved to giraffes. The three grow very wary of one another after getting Bender angry that they left the world where robots committed a genocide of all humans.
This seems like a nice future. Let's just stay here. We can settle down on that mountain of skulls.
Then, when the gang find a future where sensual women rule the earth and they actually have a backward time machine, Bender, being petty, hurls them forward in time before they can fix their problem. Now stranded at the end of time, they find that Earth is a barren wasteland with no life whatsoever left. Back in the original time, Leela is slapped on the back of her head with a birthday card Frye had gotten for her that slipped out of time when they were initially sent forward. Leela realizes that after a life of resentment that Frye actually never stood her up and intended to be with her on that night.
My whole life I've been mad at him, and it wasn't his fault.
In the ruins of the restaurant they intended to have their date, Leela leaves a message for Frye that he actually finds at the end of time, realizing that the best time in Leela's life was when they were together. With the universe at its end, the gang pull up a chair and watch it end, and then realize that the universe simply restarts over again. Now seeing that they can go back to their time, they travel forward in time until they make it back to the 3000s, not without making one quick stop. So yeah, this episode has a lot of things I like. Sci-fi time travel, emotional moments, good jokes, and most importantly, an advancement of Leela and Frye's romance, which essentially is the main plot of the entire show. It's easy to see why this episode won an Emmy. It also features one of my favorite jokes in the Futurama revival, when they accidentally go back through time again.
Just slow it down. I'll shoot Hitler out the window. Darn! I hit Eleanor Roosevelt by mistake.
Number 18. Bender's Big Score. And this might be cheating, but I mean all of Bender's Big Score. The whole damn thing. Keep in mind, I got into Futurama after its original run, so this was the first new Futurama anything that I got to experience as it was released. I was ecstatic that any new Futurama was now available, and the prospects of it coming back full time put me into a frenzy. This would be the first of 4 Futurama movies that would go straight to DVD and eventually make their way onto Comedy Central in episode form before the full revival.
Shut up and get to the point!
Damn it, Bender, I'm doing it, okay? Anyways, Bender's Big Score tells the tale of Planet Express being taken over by the nudist scammers led by Nudar. These nudists thrive on personal information. It even arouses them.
It engorges in the presence of information.
The nudists discover that there's a tattoo on Frye's ass of Bender which displays a time code that, when said out loud, summons a time sphere that can send one anywhere back in time. With Bender being able to wait out the time without aging, the nudists mind control Bender to go through time and steal millions of artifacts. With them becoming rich and now owning Earth, the nudists get Bender to attempt to kill Frye to erase the time code. Frye goes back in time to the year 2000 and Bender follows. After some more time travel shenanigans, copies of both are created, and while the real Frye goes back into the freezer to get back to the 3000s, Bender chases the copy of Frye and seemingly kills him.
Fry, old buddy, it's me, Bender.
Back in the year 3007, Leela falls for a man named Lars as they are all huddled together, now homeless because of the nudists. Lars and Leela get engaged, and at their wedding, Hermes, who had been using a copy of his body after being decapitated earlier, gets decapitated again, and it's revealed that the time paradox duplicate is always doomed. Lars then immediately calls off the wedding and runs off, leaving everyone in shock. The gang join up with evil Santa Claus and lots of familiar Futurama faces in order to fight back against the scammers, including a dope rap song with Mark Hamill as the Hanukkah zombie and Coolio as Kwanzaa Bot, rest in peace. After the song, they battle in space with the nudists and their Death Stars and seemingly destroy them with the help of Hermes' bureaucratic brain power. After they succeed, Frye brings Lars to Leela in hopes of reconnecting them, but before Lars explains why they can't, Nudar comes in attempting to kill them all if he can't get the code. However, they have already deleted the code from Frye's ass. So Nudar turns to Lars, who sacrifices himself to save them all, revealing that Lars was the doomed duplicate of Frye the whole time. That twist drove me insane, and it's crazy to go back on rewatch and see all the clues leading up to it. I mean, Lars had several near-death experiences before he finally dies. I've neglected to mention that after Frye returns from the year 2000, the film is intercut with Frye's duplicate's journey. It's a touching story of him trying to find purpose in living his life in the 2000s that he missed. After this Frye returns from his journey, he is then nearly killed by Bender, which instead turns him into the guy we know as Lars. Lars heads to the future and waits for Leela to arrive in his life, now matured into the man that she'd love. This is one of the best Futurama stories ever told. Even though it's called Bender's Big Score, the true story that captivates me is the one of Frye, Leela, and Lars. This whole thing is a love letter for Futurama fans, and it leaves us with a truly beautiful and satisfying ending. It doesn't feel exactly like old Futurama pre-revival, but it's an excellent watch that I go back to this day. It's easily the best Futurama movie and easily makes my list.
Neat! It's like looking in a smelly mirror.
Number 17. How Hermes requisitioned his groove back.
Spoiler alert, but the rest of this list features only episodes from Futurama's original run.
And this one is a great one. It's the first episode that explores more of Hermes' character as a bureaucrat. First, we get to see how he operates on a day-to-day basis in Planet Express, how he stamps his files 5 times, and how he relates to the central bureaucracy.
Attention Hermes Conrad, you are about to receive a letter from the central bureaucracy. My God, it's from the central bureaucracy!
Hermes prepares for an inspection where he could be promoted to a higher grade in the bureaucracy. Unfortunately for him, Bender gets caught cheating at a poker game and runs into Hermes' office where he gets his ass beat. Side note here, but I love the return of the cryogenic lab guys from the pilot, and the scene of them setting up the poker game was always satisfying to me.
Let the games begin!
Bureaucrat Inspector Morgan arrives the next day, leaving Hermes with no time to fix everything.
The inspector will be here in exactly 1 second! Who the hell are you?
Hermes' response to this inspection is one of the funniest moments in the show's history and has become a meme that people who don't even watch the show use all the time online.
Don't worry, I have a plan. I'm going to jump!
Oh! Do a flip!
Alright, I promise this just won't be clips from the show. Let's actually talk about why this episode is so good.
Hermes goes on a vacation recommended by Zoidberg, which turns out to be a forced labor camp. However, with Hermes' bureaucratic brain, he was able to regulate the workload so they would drastically improve efficiency. I also love the storyline between Morgan and Frye and how she blatantly treats everyone like crap except for him, because she has a kink for his lazy habits. Bender catches on to this, and her response is to take out his brain and ship it to the central bureaucracy, leaving Bender only being able to say,
I am Bender. Please insert girder.
The exploration of the bureaucracy is fun, and Herbie's eventual return and the song he sings is also very fun. I love that he finally got a spotlight because he's a genuinely interesting character, and his comical over-dedication to his work is a fun gag that they explored wonderfully here. I love when characters get their own focused stories, and this one is no exception.
I'm Bender, baby. Please insert liquor.
Number 16. The Day the Earth Stood Stupid. I struggled with whether to put this or the Why of Frye on this list, but ultimately I went with this one because it has so many more funny and iconic moments. For one thing, we get the introduction to the Hypno-Toad. So this episode reveals that Nibbler is a being of high intelligence, being part of a race that's existed since nearly the beginning of the universe. Along with that exists their sworn enemies, the Brain Spawn. Nibbler explains to Leela that the brains are headed for Earth and that Frye is the only one who will be unaffected by them, therefore leaving him to have to stop them. What absolutely kills me this episode is that the brains make the entire Earth dumb, and we get to see Frye react to all of his coworkers' idiotic antics.
Ow, 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 I'm a genius. Ow, ow.
Once Frye becomes aware of the brains, he goes to fight the biggest brain, and what ensues is a hilarious chase with the brain leading him into many famous novels. Then after each book, the characters from those books follow them into the next one, leading to a hilarious continuation of a joke started in Moby Dick.
The whale, he be white now.
Well, it's not explained just yet why Frye is immune, and Nibbler goes back to being in disguise as a mindless pet. Frye is able to defeat the big brain by trapping him in his own novel because Frye's thinking itself harms the brains. After this, what follows is the best resolution to a problem in the entire show, and one of my favorite lines, period, and one of the best episodes, period.
The big brain am winning again. I am the greatest. Mwah! Now I am leaving Earth for no reason.
Number 15. Burger King Roswell That Ends Well. This is the first episode to win an Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program, and it shakes up a lot of continuity for the show's future. After being caught in the waves of a supernova and an exploding microwave colliding, the entire crew is sent back in time to Roswell, New Mexico, discovering that they were the alleged flying saucer discovered there in 1947.
That's no flying saucer. That's my ass!
This one is just incredibly smart and well written. It deals with the crew trying to relate to a time long before them, which juxtaposes Frye's normal behavior in the show of trying to relate to a bunch of people from the future. Frye also goes to visit who he thought was his grandfather Enos, and in an attempt to keep him safe, accidentally lures him into his untimely death. What follows is Frye going to comfort the woman he believed to be his grandmother, who comes onto him because he reminds her of Enos. Frye then indeed does the nasty in the pasty and comes to a crazy realization the next morning.
Who's my grandfather? Isn't it obvious? You are!
This comes after the professor repeatedly warns Frye and the rest of them not to interfere with history, as he and Leela go through the town trying to find a microwave and fit in with the people of that time. It also explains that the supposed captured alien was nothing more than Dr. Zoidberg.
Are you planning to make some kind of alien-human hybrid?
Are you coming on to me?
Hot crackers, I take exception to that.
I'm not hearing a no.
This is an episode where nearly every character shines, especially Zoidberg. His interactions with the humans around him, completely unaware of his predicament, is such a good decision to include by the writers. He's the perfect character to put in this situation.
Stomach contents, 1 deviled egg.
Deviled egg?
The same deviled egg.
So after Frye literally screws with history, the professor says fuck it, and they go on a full assault of the base in order to get their microwave satellite and head back to the 3000s. This episode is one that a lot of people remember for the plans it set into motion for the future of the show. That's another reason why I love it, and this show so much because events take place that legitimately have stakes and change how things happen going forward. It's a fun and creative narrative from beginning to end, and a great milestone in the history of Futurama.
Enos!
He's dead! Sorry!
Number 14. The Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings. This was the first finale of Futurama, ending its run on Fox, and it truly pulls out all the stops by bringing back major plot points and characters of the past, including the Robot Devil, played by Homer Simpson voice actor Dan Castellaneta.
With hands like that, you'll be lucky to master a belt buckle.
The Robot Devil is one of my favorite reoccurring characters in the show, debuting in the episode Hell is Other Robots. And while he performs one of the most iconic songs in the show in that one, I feel like this episode is his best performance. So Frye, wanting to impress Leela, laments that his hands are not good enough to master using the holophoner, a futuristic instrument that can project images based on quality of music and the thoughts of the artist playing it. In order to win Leela's heart, he makes a deal with the devil to replace his hands with that of a random robot's. By sheer dumb luck, it turns out to be the Robot Devil's hands, much to his dismay.
Oh, what an appallingly ironic outcome!
With that, Frye uses his new hands to become a world-famous holophoner, eventually deciding to write an entire opera dedicated to Leela. Unfortunately for him, the Robot Devil is not happy with his new hands and will do anything to get his old ones back.
These things are always touching me in places.
The Robot Devil makes a deal with Bender and gives him a horn to annoy people with. This backfires on Bender when he uses it on Leela, making her go deaf, unable to hear Frye's opera. In yet another deal with the devil, on the night of the opera, Leela agrees to give him her left hand in exchange for Calculon's ears, in order to hear the opera. The opera takes place according to plan and is a huge love letter addressing some of the plot points of the show's history, as well as some events Frye might have made up.
I don't recall ever fighting Godzilla, but that is so what I would have done.
The entire time that the opera goes on, the cast make comments about it, which adds a lot to each scene, especially when it gets to parts where they start singing along. Later on, angered by being made to look like a fool in the opera, the Robot Devil jumps on stage and reveals in an ad-lib song that he has tricked Leela into signing away her hand in marriage, unless Frye gives him his hands back. And one of the best songs in the show, Frye, Leela, the Robot Devil, and the other members of the cast have an amazing scene going back and forth at one another, completely on beat and on key the entire time. Frye reluctantly relinquishes his hands to the Robot Devil and is then unable to finish the opera with his useless human hands.
Your music's bad and you should feel bad.
When everyone walks out claiming the opera is an all-time stinker, Leela is the only one left in the crowd, and at the time the series ends with one of the best scenes to end an episode. Though if I watched this at the time, it would probably leave me a bit unsatisfied. But now that Leela and Frye have been given a proper ending, kinda, we're able to look back on this ending very fondly to an all-time great piece of television. Number 13. Brannigan, Begin Again.
Now, this is the first episode on this list that focuses on one of my favorite characters in all of television, and that would be the velour fog himself, Captain Zap Brannigan.
Zap is a slimy, misogynistic womanizer, who somehow has become one of the highest-ranking officers in the Democratic Order of Planets, or DUPE, in the Futurama universe. What's even funnier is that he essentially got his position by sending waves upon waves of men to their deaths until the enemy would just get tired. He also would take credits for others' work because he would basically screw everything up when he gets his hands on the plans. The whole time, he keeps this fake, suave persona that is just the right kind of annoying you can't help but be entertained by everything he does.
Rock crushes scissors, but paper covers rock, and scissors cuts paper. Kiff, we have a conundrum.
So in this episode, the crew is sent to deliver oversized scissors to the new DUPE headquarters to cut the ceremonial ribbon. Zap, distracted by his lust for Leela, wrongfully arrests the crew, taking the scissors with him. When the time comes for Zap to cut the ribbon, instead of being there to cut it with the scissors, he makes the decision to cut it with the laser from his ship, causing the brand new station to explode.
Whoopsie daisy.
Disgraced by his failure, Zap is dishonorably discharged along with his assistant Kiff, and they are thrust into the city of New York as homeless, jobless bums. That is until Zap turns to Leela for help, and the professor, delighted by the prospect of having Zap on his crew, immediately hires both Zap and Kiff to join the team.
Having him on staff would distract people from our horrendous safety record.
So as they come aboard, Zap starts to get in the heads of Bender and Frye by making it seem like he'd let them do whatever they want as captain, while Leela has been shown to be very strict. At the same time, Kip sees Leela as a massive upgrade as he often was mistreated by Zap.
He actually ordered me to shave his armpits while he was in the bathtub.
On their first mission, the guys disobey Leela's orders and are forced to carry heavy pillows on a planet with extreme gravity. This and Zap's manipulation convinces them to stage a mutiny and institute him as the new captain. In order to gain the DUPE's trust back, Zap plans to attack the neutral planet.
Oh, and I haven't even mentioned the neutrals, which is crazy because they're one of the best parts of this whole episode.
The neutral people are one of the best one-off characters in Futurama history because every single response they have is just clearly right down the middle with the exact same tone of voice. It makes this episode honestly hugely memorable just for their quotes alone.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
So in the end, Leela saves the day and lets Zap take credit for it so he and Kiff can get their job back and be out of their lives for the time being. This is one of the episodes that illustrate what an amazing addition to any episode Zap is. He just brings an added dimension of stupid humor that practically anything he says gets a chuckle out of me. But overall, it's just a really solid episode that lands at lucky number 13 on this list.
If I don't survive, tell my wife hello.
Number 12. Head in the polls.
Now, this episode focuses on one of my favorite subjects, and that would be the thrill of politics.
Okay, joking aside, this is one of my favorite Bender-focused episodes in the show. Bender just goes off in this one, insulting everyone, and it's probably the main reason I used to rewatch this one so much. I can't get enough of his quotes from this one, they all just hit for me. This is also the episode where we begin the running joke of Bender being 40% something.
My body's 40% titanium!
So to elaborate, the presidential election of Earth is taking place and Leela is trying to get everyone to see its importance and prepare to vote. I love the entire concept of both candidates being a pointless decision because growing up it honestly always felt that way to me, so I related to it a lot. I love the cast going through and learning about each of the wacky third parties that exist in the future. Each interaction honestly gets a laugh out of me.
Today the mad scientist can't get a doomsday device. Tomorrow it's the mad grad student. Where will it end?
Amen, brother. I don't go anywhere without my mutated anthrax. For duck hunting.
The real crux of this episode is Bender selling his body when titanium prices skyrocket. He then becomes a rich head and immediately decides to act better than everyone. Unbeknownst to Bender, his body is then purchased and repurposed as a body for former President Richard Nixon.
Nixon is also one of my favorite side characters in the entire show. In fact, as a kid, this was my legit introduction to the real-life man himself.
That's my style. I like to kick 'em when they're down.
Bender regrets selling his body and becomes enraged when he sees that it's now in Nixon's possession. In order to get it back and prevent Nixon from winning the election, the crew attempt to get it back from him.
We're appealing to your sense of decency.
When that doesn't work, the crew infiltrates the hotel Nixon's staying at. Thanks to Frye, they are unable to secure the body without waking Nixon. Yet thankfully they get him angry enough to spill his actual plans once he becomes president in one of my favorite tirades ever in the show's history.
And I'll go into people's houses at night and wreck up the place.
Bender records this and they use it as blackmail to get his body back. They go home and think all is right, and Nixon appears to get no votes. However, that is until the robots vote, which immediately hands Nixon the win. This episode is really one of the best, and before I started this list, I was sure it would make the top 10, because like I said, I rewatched it so much. I can practically quote it in its entirety. There are so many funny moments from this episode that I couldn't include, so please check it out yourself.
Oh, what an awful dream! Ones and zeros everywhere! Ugh, and I thought I saw 2.
It was just a dream, Bender. There's no such thing as 2.
Number 11. The Deep South. This is just another one that is insanely quotable.
I'm sure that'll be a running theme on this list, but like the last one, nearly every joke in this episode hits.
This episode is a fun one because it features the entire Planet Express crew working off each other for nearly the entire episode. The crew goes out for a nice fishing day, which starts a heated game of one-upsmanship between the entire crew about who can catch the biggest fish.
I once caught a fish this big.
Oh yeah? I once caught a fish this big.
The first part of this episode is a perfect example of rapid-fire jokes as each Planet Express employee just works off each other perfectly. It's funny how this is somewhat early in the show's history and they've clearly formed so much chemistry you'd think they'd all been working together for years.
Harpoon my ass.
Okay.
So after Bender hooks a
colossal mouth bass,
the crew is taken down into the depths of the ocean, stranded without any means of getting back to the surface until they can modify the ship. Frye, Bender, and Zoidberg go out to search for food, Zoidberg finally finding a home for himself, and Frye finds a real-life mermaid. That night, when Frye tells them about the mermaid, none of them believe him, Leela going so far as to say he's suffering from ocean madness.
He may have ocean madness, but that's no excuse for ocean rudeness.
Frye sees the mermaid again out the window when he's in bed and goes out to see her. They immediately start to fall for one another, which is illustrated wonderfully with the montage set to the song Atlantis. After a while, the crew goes out to search for Frye, eventually making an incredible discovery.
It's the fabled lost city of Atlanta!
Howdy, y'all!
Atlanta being the lost city in Futurama is such a funny twist to the idea of Atlantis and makes total sense that time has gone by so long that it would be considered legendary at this point. The way Atlanta is portrayed as a city so desperate for tourism that they moved offshore and eventually collapsed is a good bit, and what's even better is the clip narrated by guest star Donovan, especially the part where he lists all the famous Atlanteans that fled the city before it sank.
Ted Turner, Hank Aaron, Jeff Foxworthy, the guy who invented Coca-Cola, the magician.
Like, it's just so fucking absurd. I mean, who the hell is the magician?
The magician?
Yes, exactly. Leela gets it.
Anyways, it's also explained that the Coca-Cola bottling plant accelerated the evolution of Atlanteans into mermaids, which is also a good bit. So with the crew ready to depart with the ship all fixed, Frye decides to stay to get with Umbriel the mermaid and to join the country club with her dad, an obvious homage to Colonel Sanders.
Umbriel? These are some Yankees!
As the crew is about to depart, Frye realizes that it won't really work out with him and Umbriel due to, well...
Why couldn't she be the other kind of mermaid, with the fish part on top and the lady part on the bottom?
This episode ends on a cool full circle note, when the fish that got them into this mess swallows Frye on the hook of the ship from the beginning of the episode. Crew makes it up to the surface with the fish, where Bender is awarded by the mayor for having such a heavy catch. But when Frye falls out of the fish's mouth, it loses just enough weight to lose Bender the check.
I'm giving it to some giant orphans!
So yeah, this is a classic Futurama story from beginning to end, with jokes up the wazoo.
And I can't move on to the top 10 without talking about one of the best all-time Futurama jokes in the entire series. Right before the crew is about to leave, Zoidberg thinks he's gonna stay behind as well since he finally has a home, and the reveal here is just peak Futurama.
My home! It burned down! Oh! How did this happen?
That's a very good question.
So that's where I left my cigar.
That just raises further questions.
Number 10. A Flight to Remember. Yes, to start off my top 10 favorite, I gotta go with the Titanic parody, because it is one of the most pivotal episodes in the entire series. It brings all major characters of the first season together in one big ship to bring some long-standing Futurama plotlines to the forefront for the first time. So the first twist in this trip is that Zap Brannigan is announced as the captain of this vessel, which can only mean problems for Leela.
Shapely, seductive. I'm gonna fly her brains out.
The professor, Hermes, his wife LaBarbara, and surprisingly Zoidberg get fancy cabins, while Frye, Leela, Bender, and Amy stay in the Fiesta deck, the lowest of the low for this large ship. While going through first class with the professor, Bender spots a Fenbot who immediately catches his eye. This kicking off the Rose and Jack parody for this episode. This is the first episode where Bender truly falls for someone, and it's the first of many emotional tragedies for him that illustrate his quest for purpose throughout the series.
I assure you, I barely know the meaning of the word labor.
Bender is my favorite character on the show and probably one of my favorites ever, if not my absolute favorite. Despite being depicted as a supposed emotionless machine, he brings a lot of heart and dimension to the forefront of the show. It's shown here that he's fallen so hard for the Countess that he chooses not to steal from her and also ends up putting his own life in danger to go back and save her. Also in this episode, Frye is made to serve as both Leela and Amy's fake boyfriend in order to trip Zap and Amy's parents respectively.
Because I consider my fake relationship with you a lot more meaningful.
This is actually the first episode that gives us our first major hint at Frye and Leela's will they won't they relationship that becomes a major plotline for the entire series. When Frye begins being Amy's fake boyfriend, Leela gets clearly jealous. Then, as the episode progresses, everyone is seen to be having a romantic evening, all except for Frye and Leela, leading to them starting to lean in for a mutual kiss.
Frye and Leela's relationship and story is one of my favorites in all of entertainment, so any episode that addresses it in a significant way is gonna get bonus points from me. Hint for later.
Also in this episode, we get more of Zap making a complete ass of himself.
Comets, the icebergs of the sky. By jackknifing from one to the next at breakneck speed, we might just get some kind of gravity boost or something.
This is one of the more notable Zap episodes, but I also have to mention Kif because some of his comebacks and responses to Zap bring me a lot of laughs as well. Speaking of Kif, when Zap flees the impending doom of the ship, Kip assumes command. I said Kip, wow. Kif assumes command, and at the perfect time, impresses Amy's parents with his title of captain, enough for them to introduce him to Amy. Amy and Kif immediately connect, and this starts their long-standing relationship, which is also another plotline that will come up a lot in future episodes. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, this is the episode that first introduces Hermes' background as an Olympic limbo champion.
It's too low! Your backbone can't take it!
I'm just like Hermes! I'm just like...
Yeah, like I said, this episode introduces a lot of things that become long-running in the show's continuity.
That's a huge reason why I love this show. It maintains a consistent, continuous story throughout the entire series. Sure, it's not as serialized as a week-to-week TV drama, but things are introduced and expanded upon later. This episode is a clear example of that. Anyways, the Countess sacrifices herself to save the rest of the crew, and the episode ends on a hilarious punchline to tie this one up.
What do you think it's worth?
It's fake, mon.
Number 9. A Big Ball of Garbage. This is my favorite episode of Season 1 because I honestly believe it's one of the funniest episodes in the entire series.
Hey, as long as you don't make me smell your anus.
I don't get it.
I'm sorry, Frye, but astronomers renamed Uranus in 2620 to end that stupid joke once and for all.
Oh, what's it called now?
Eurectum.
So this episode begins with the Academy of Science Symposium, introducing the professor's place as part of a large committee of other scientists. Among those are his old student, Ogden Wernstrom. Wernstrom is one of my favorite antagonists in the series. His rivalry with the professor is so juvenile, even at their old ages. They both go to such great lengths to outdo one another, no matter how idiotic and asinine it makes themselves seem. Whenever he's included in an episode, it promises to be a good one. But anyways, after being embarrassed at the symposium by Wernstrom, the professor invents a smelloscope. Well, actually,
I remembered that I built one last year.
Forgetfulness of the professor is also one of my favorite running gags in the show, and it's at an all-time high here, but I digress. Frye and the professor discover an intensely disgusting smelling object in space headed directly for New York. Turns out to be a huge ball of garbage made up of littered trash from the 21st century. The video that they find detailing it on the internet is also a great bit.
Now that the garbage is in space, Doctor, perhaps you can help me with my sexual inhibitions.
With gusto.
In order to save New York, the professor sends Frye, Leela, and Bender to plant a bomb on the garbage ball flying through space. Once again, the absolute ineptitude of the professor is illustrated to hilarious effect when he sets the timer for the bomb to 52 seconds instead of 25 minutes because he read the instructions upside down.
Yeah, I don't know how that makes sense, but just go with it.
All hope seems lost, but Frye has the idea to create another ball of garbage in order to divert the original one's course into the sun. Mayor Poopenmeyer helps Frye get that message out to the people, and all of New York is able to band together with all their trash to successfully eliminate the garbage ball once and for all. They also completely disregard that the new garbage ball would return and cause the same exact problem.
Exactly. It's none of our concern.
Overall, I love this episode because it's the quintessential episode. It has a fun story at the beginning that connects to the main problem and comes back full circle at the end. It explores the differences with Frye's life in the past with the way things are now in the future. It has a fun space mission, and it features many funny little bits that are insanely memorable and quotable. It's one of the first episodes of the show that really sets a template on how to make a tremendous episode as it progresses, and it'll always be the episode in Season 1 that I go back to and watch the most.
I now present you with the Academy Prize, which we confiscated from Dr. Wernstrom after it became apparent that he was a jackass.
Number 8. Teenage Mutant Leela's Hurdles.
This episode has one of my favorite openings ever.
Pazuzu, you ungrateful gargoyle! I put you through college, and this is how you repay me?
So apparently the professor had a gargoyle all this time, but whatever, we'll get back to that later. This episode features one of the most interesting concepts in the entire series. The crew gets increasingly fed up with how much of an old curmudgeon the professor has become, so they decide to go give him a futuristic spa treatment to quite literally remove the oldness from his body.
Oh.
After the treatment seems to do nothing, Bender decides to increase the intensity of the tar bath that the professor is in. This backfires when it causes the ground to collapse and the rest of the crew to fall inside the tar pit. When they climb out of the pits, they discover that each of them have reverted to their teenage years and that the professor has reverted to his 50s.
Hooray! I'm a teenage heartthrob again.
For the next few segments of the show, we get to see how each younger version of the crew acts, which brings a whole new dimension to each of their characters. It allows them to be seen in a whole new light, as their childlike immaturity moves to the forefront. Also, instead of just being their boss, the professor now has to become their surrogate father for the time being, as the only one able to take care of them during this time. Well, all except for Leela. You see, Leela sees this as a huge opportunity to grow up with her newly discovered parents in the sewers among mutants. It's all she's ever wanted, so her parents reluctantly abide by her wishes, even if it causes some confusion.
Let's all have some tequila to celebrate!
Dad, I'm underage.
Ah, right. Here's a silly straw.
The professor seemingly finds a way to revert them all back to normal, yet it backfires spectacularly, now making them even younger, with them gradually growing younger and younger by the minute. This leads to us getting more and more versions of the crew as time goes on, especially Zoidberg, who goes through the many different adolescent stages of his life cycle. It's one of my favorite running jokes from this episode. So later on, as the kids near their unbirth, Leela and the professor devise a plan to find the Fountain of Aging, where they can dip in the waters and go back to their old ages again. Leela, however, initially wants to continue her new life with her parents.
Bring beer.
No beer till you finish your tequila!
Yet afterwards, she sneaks out anyway just to accompany them at first, but is forced to abandon those hopes when the crew are nearly washed away in the whirlpool. Leela saves them, all except for the professor, and before he is submerged completely, he drops one of the best lines in all of television.
With my last breath, I curse Zoidberg!
Seriously, this is probably one of, if not the best Farnsworth-centered episodes in the entire series. Some of the outlandish moronic things he says and does earlier in this episode depict what a stubborn old idiot he is. As overall one of my favorite characters in the show, he shines perfectly in this one. So as Futurama episodes normally do in their closing moments, things come full circle when Pazuzu returns to save the professor in exchange for his freedom. Sure, it can be seen as an ex machina sort of turn of events, but it was something established in the very beginning of the episode, so we knew it was going to come back into play somehow. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of this episode, and it really does right by such a genius concept.
Hey, Grandpa, move your wrinkly old keister.
Shut up!
Number 7. Amazon Women in the Mood. Ah yes, this one. It's probably one of the most widely known episodes of the show, and it's pretty much for one thing, and that thing is...
Snoo snoo!
Snoo snoo. Snoo snoo.
Snoo snoo!
Snoo snoo.
Snoo snoo!
Snoo snoo.
What there's so much more to this episode, I assure you.
So first, we call back to the Titanic being destroyed, and it's revealed that after all this time, Kif hasn't gotten back in touch with Amy after they hooked up. He's too much of a coward to say anything to her, being totally head over heels for her that he can't even speak whenever he tries to call her. Seeking assistance in getting back with Amy, he turns to Zap.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're crying like a woman.
Oh, and if you hate jokes like that, then this episode's not going to be for you, because this episode's full of them.
Yeah, Futurama a lot of times falls into the habit of having men and women fight over gender differences. In some episodes like this one, I think the jokes are funny enough that it's not distracting or offensive, but I can see how it could be off-putting to some. I think it works because throughout this episode, the men are perceived outright as jerks and idiots in the wrong. Yet, I am a guy myself, so maybe I'm not the best authority on what's okay and what's not. Back to the episode though. So Zap sets up a double date with Amy and Leela reluctantly agreeing just to appease Amy. On the date, Zap criticizes Kif's moves and gives him a book of lines that are just so Zap you can already see how this is gonna turn out.
I find the most erotic part of a woman is the boobies.
After Zap kicks Kif off the stage during a pretty sweet karaoke performance, he sings so terribly that everyone in the restaurant abandons the ship. The egotistical Zap then takes charge of the restaurant and makes one of the stupidest funny Zap quips you'll ever hear.
She's built like a steakhouse, but she handles like a bistro.
Zap has so many lines like this in the show, and believe me, there will be more later on.
Go on.
Zap predictably crashes the ship on a strange planet whose only inhabitants are revealed to be the large women of Amazonia. In this world, the women have all gotten sick of the men and created their own society. They live peacefully together without men. That is because the last men that were there died out due to, well...
crushed pelvises.
Oh yeah, Frye and Bender see that it's been a while since Leela and Amy have returned, so they set out to find them. This is also where Bender reveals that he is Mexican, and his full name is Bender Bending Rodriguez. He reveals this when Zoidberg tests out a new shell, which is essentially a stereotype. Oh, by the way, the B-plot is Zoidberg molting from his shell, and it's quite entertaining as well. So Frye and Bender get kidnapped with the rest, only for Amy and Leela to be let go. The guys are then brought before the Amazonians' leader, a giant female computer known as Femputer. Femputer decides that the men will be sentenced to death after learning that they made fun of the women's basketball league.
We know can dunk, but good fundamentals.
That more fun to watch.
However, Frye and Zap get their wish and are to be killed by Snoo Snoo. Kif is as well, even though he had no part in any of this. Also, Bender is set free since he's a robot and literally won't be killed by it. Kif confesses to Amy that he's in love with her and didn't mean to creep her out earlier. Motivated by love, Amy runs in to save Kif while the other two are being Snoo Snooed.
Yeah!
Oh, baby.
Oh, yeah!
At the same time, Bender sneaks up on Femputer, by the way played by B. Arthur, and discovers that inside of her is just a fembot who was wronged by a manbot long ago, and came there to express her wrath onto all the men she'd come across on that planet. Bender helps her see the other side of things, and they get together in enough time to order the women to release Frye, Zap, and Kif. In the end, Amy and Kif are now an established couple, and Frye and Zap escape with their lives. This episode is another fun one because it continues a story established early on in the show, and it takes the planet full of women concept as far as it could possibly go. It's also been hinted at previously in the show with the Amazonian women appearing in Brannigan Begin Again. As I said, this one's not for everyone, but to me it always brings a lot of good laughs.
Bender, think of the senoritas.
Vámonos!
Number 6. 300 Big Boys. This one is iconic for several reasons, but my main reason for loving it is that it involves nearly every character in the show at this point and how they all react to be granted a $300 bill from President Nixon. It's another episode where everything is tied together perfectly and is probably one of the most well-constructed episodes in the show's history.
Smooches. Mwah.
So after they receive the bill, we follow each character in the show and how they each spend it. So I'll go through them one by one. Frye decides to use his to buy 100 cups of coffee all in a row. This is easily the part of the show that everyone knows about and probably leads to some of the funniest and most iconic parts of the show.
Of course I've been up all night. Not because of caffeine, it was insomnia. I couldn't stop thinking about coffee. I need a nap. Coffee time!
Bender's eye is caught by Le Grand Cigar, and unable to afford it, buys burglar's tools in order to easily steal it. Hermes spends his on boogie boots to appear fun to his son, which unfortunately backfires, getting them stuck on the boots for days. The professor, in a contradictory matter from one of the previous episodes, actually spends his on stem cells in order to make him youthful, eventually meeting a young woman who used her money to appear thinner.
You, wrinkled as a prune.
You, fat as the queen of sea cows.
And Scruffy,
you know. the janitor, uses his money to buy a new haircut. Amy uses hers to buy a talking tattoo. Kif buys a romantic date on a flying tandem bike with Amy, as well as a watch that tells the time where both of them are. And Leela uses hers to swim with Mushu, a sperm whale at the local aquarium. This also leads to one of the best gags in an episode of the entire show, and another one of my favorite one-off characters, the whale biologist.
You're lumpy and you smell awful. Hey, I calls them like I sees them. I'm a whale biologist.
So where all these stories start to connect is when the watch Amy received falls into the whale's tank and into Mushu's mouth. Leela decides to use her appointment with the whale to get him to vomit up the watch by slipping him a bunch of rotten fish in the tank. Kif is then arrested when jumping into the tank because he's covered in priceless whale barf, and Leela is left without a bathing suit.
The suit was ugly! Whale biologist.
All story points connect when the entire cast comes together at Zap Brannigan's party, celebrating his victory against the Spiderians, the thing that sparked this tax refund in the first place. When Hermes unfortunately crashes the party still wearing the boots, he runs into Bender, who is smoking Le Grand Cigar in the faces of the snobby rich folk, and the cigar lights the flammable silk tapestry of Zap's victory.
The loot! The loot! The loot is on fire!
The day is saved by an orange blur in the form of Frye, who has just drunk his 100th cup of coffee. The power of the coffee essentially making him go Ultra Instinct. Time slows down for Frye, making him able to save everyone in the room and put out all the fire surrounding them. When they go outside, they run into Zoidberg, who is hosting a feast of turkey dogs for everyone to enjoy together. I've neglected to mention Zoidberg's part in this episode, which I honestly think is one of the most meaningful parts he plays in the entire series. Zoidberg, not having any money for most of the show, finally has some kind of money to his name. He searches for fancy things to make him feel rich in life now that he believes he is rich in wealth. Nothing he finds satisfies him, and at the party he realizes he's not even close to the level of wealth he thought he'd achieved. However, when he goes outside and sits with some bums, he has the realization that one can be rich in life in other ways, not just financially, which is an amazing message, and conveyed greatly by the lovable tramp Zoidberg, choosing to use his money just to make his friends happy. There's really nothing more to say about this episode that could further illustrate why it's one of the best. It's simply fantastic. Every story wraps up nicely together, even Bender's.
All right! Closure! Ah! Oh! Oh!
Number 5. The Problem with Poplars.
We're down to the top 5, and these are without a doubt the Futurama episodes that I've rewatched the most over the years, starting with this one, which I remember watching over and over again on my DVR before I got my DVDs.
So after a delivery, the crew are in need of something to eat, so they stop on a random planet and spot some pits filled with what seem to be edible snacks. Leela takes a bite and immediately goes in for more and more, eating as many as physically possible. Frye joins in and describes how good they are with a classic Frye quote.
They're like sex, except I'm having them.
They bring their discovery home and share them with the rest, deciding to sell them on the street and naming them Poplars. While on the street selling them, they instantly become a sensation in New York, getting the attention of Fishy Joseph Gilman, the owner of the food chain Fishy Joe's. Joe makes a deal to sell them at his establishments, giving the crew a huge cut of the profits. With all seeming to go right for the crew, of course something would have to happen to change the course of the episode. Leela, while cleaning up some leftover trash from the Poplars, finds one that's grown big and scaly. The Poplar opens its eyes and says, Leela, in shock, attempts to stop everyone from eating Poplars as they are intelligent beings. She convinces the crew to help get people all around to stop eating them with varying levels of success.
Stop enjoying Poplars on the patio, in the car, or on the boat, wherever good times are had. Ah!
This raises a debate between Leela, who as I said wants them to not be eaten because they're intelligent, Fishy Joe, who doesn't care about the repercussions of doing so, a smelly hippie that's a member of the Waterfall family, a running joke of characters from that family that get killed during whatever episodes they appear in.
Spoilers?
So as the one talking Poplar begins to speak up, starting to look oddly familiar, Earth is once again invaded by Lur of the planet Omicron Persei 8 and his people. It turns out that the planet that Poplars were found on was a nursing planet in their system.
You monsters have been eating our babies!
The Omicronians demand to eat as many humans that ate Poplars. Thankfully, due to master negotiations from Zap Brannigan,
these would be great with guacamole.
Stop eating our young! And it's pronounced guacamole!
The Omicronians decide that they only want to eat one specific human, the one who first ate Poplars to begin with, which turns out to be Leela. Despite her actively trying to get people to stop, Zap devises a plan for Leela to be saved.
Why don't you tell it to Wingus and Dingus here?
Wingus, Dingus, listen up.
As a kid, I thought this was the funniest shit ever. I would rewind it over and over again just to hear it again, and I would die of laughter over and over again, and still to this day, it'll always get a laugh out of me.
In a lot of ways, that's why I love this show and episode. It's filled with so many moments that still make me laugh after nearly 20 years of watching it. Over and over again, no matter how many times, I'm still ecstatic as I ever was, whether it be the first or 1000th time I've seen it.
Please, I'm creating.
Okay, fine. So the plan is to replace Leela with an orangutan, because the Omicronians have a tough time pinpointing what a human actually looks like. The plan nearly works to perfection until Waterfall steps in to save the ape, revealing to Lur that it isn't Leela at all.
You must have smoked some bad granola.
Lur demands to eat the real Leela, who is thankfully saved by Jur, the Poplar she saved earlier on, with a heartwarming speech convincing Lur that humans are their friends and they did not mean to cause the Omicronians any harm. Lur becomes beloved by the Earthicans when he eats the smelly hippie and literally gets high off him.
Dude, my hands are huge. They can touch anything but themselves. Oh, wait.
This is my favorite episode that features the Omicronians. Their part in this one caught me off guard way back when, although now going back to the twist that Poplars are their babies should have been pretty obvious. Even still, Lur is a fan favorite side character and brings a lot to any episode he's a part of. It's hard to truly explain why this episode is so great. It's honestly just a really funny one, which earns it a spot in the top 5. I guess all that's left to say is...
Pop a Poplar in your mouth when you come to Fishy Joe's. What they're made of is a mystery, where they come from no one knows. You could pick them, you can lick them, you could chew them, you could stick them. If you promise not to sue us, you could shove one up your nose.
Number 4. Parasites Lost.
Ironically, believe it or not, this was the very first episode of the show I watched back when I was only 4 years old.
We were on a trip to Orlando, Florida, and we got back to our room late with nothing to watch. Cartoon Network had just switched to Adult Swim, so my mom decided to just leave it on, and I got to watch 2 episodes of Futurama, followed by the first episode of Family Guy I'd ever seen, though I don't recall what episode that was.
Shut up and get to the point!
Bender, I swear to... Fine. Let's talk about the episode.
So at a truck stop, Frye eats a disgusting sandwich he found in the men's room. Back at Planet Express, the boiler explodes when he and Bender try to fix it, Frye getting a lead pipe impaled through his stomach.
Well, my lead pipe hurts a little.
That's normal. Next patient!
Almost immediately, the lead pipe is removed and the hole it leaves is perfectly repaired by an unseen force within Frye. Unbeknownst to Frye, the entire crew besides Leela take control of tiny robotic copies of themselves and go deep inside Frye in an allusion to the Fantastic Voyage. The moments inside Frye where the crew tries desperately not to alert him are hilarious, especially when the professor doesn't take his own advice.
Be very quiet. We're in the ear.
Okay, Professor.
What? What about what?
Inside of Frye, they discover that worms have made a vast civilization, improving his body in nearly every single aspect, making him smarter, stronger, and able to better express his feelings. Intercut with the main voyage, Leela takes Frye out in the city to distract him from whatever he might be feeling on the inside. Yet while they're out together, you can plainly see the change in Frye, his focus of impressing Leela beginning to get clearer.
The scent of a rose. Curious how an aromatic chain of hydrocarbons can evoke our deepest emotions. For you.
You see, while we have gotten hints to Frye's feelings for Leela, this is actually the episode where things take a big step. Where Frye had been doing things before to help Leela in a mostly friendly way with hints of there being more to it, this episode is where he outright states his feelings for her. The scene right here is where Frye fully confesses.
Leela, I love you.
During the pandemic, I rewatched the entire series of Futurama with my girlfriend, it being her first time. And when we got to this episode, I realized that this is the first time Frye has ever said that in the history of the show up until this point, and her reaction was just in genuine awe.
It's like watching a romance build for episodes upon episodes to get to this point. They did a tremendous job building to this. When Frye says he's only been able to fully express his thoughts lately, Leela realizes this is because of the worms. She leaves Frye for a moment, makes a miniature copy of herself, and plants it in Frye's coffee to go and meet with the others inside of him. Right before they are about to expel the worms from inside Frye's body, Leela takes an axe and destroys each of their copies, stopping them. She argues that Frye could have been better with the worms, and it's for him to decide. Frye walks in and figures out what's taking place, and claims that he is happy with the worms. Him and Leela also seem to have a clear connection now.
Hello, what's all this then?
Frye and Leela go back to Leela's apartment, appropriately named Apartment 1I. Before they can get it on, Frye reveals that he knows how to play the holophoner, the instrument I previously mentioned in the first finale of the show initially appears here. He plays her a beautiful song, showing them dancing together romantically in multiple forms. The animation here is simply stellar, maybe even some of the best in the initial run of the show. Afterwards, they are seen making out, and Leela says that she loves what Frye has become.
what I've become.
Motivated by these words, Frye goes back to Planet Express and makes a miniature copy of himself and goes inside of himself. He makes a plea to the king of the worms to leave his body because he wants to know if Leela truly loves him or what they've made of him. The Worm King refuses, ensuing a sword battle with Frye. They fight through Frye's body, and in order to take the upper hand, Frye injures his own brain, putting the worms' lives in danger. Right before Frye is about to fully take his own life, gambling it for the worms to leave, they finally surrender and willingly expel themselves from Frye.
But one day you'll be eating a fast food burger and boom! You'll be crawling with us again! Ever wonder what makes special sauce so special? Yo.
Frye returns to Leela, who is waiting for him in a skimpy outfit. He plays the holophoner again, unable to focus enough to play it well. He then reveals that he got rid of the worms and quite clearly has reverted back to the dumber, immature version of himself he was before. Leela rejects him and makes him leave, and Frye is left wondering if he'll ever be able to court Leela like this again. After this episode, Frye's intentions are clear, and he continues to try and get Leela to love him over and over again with varying amounts of success. This is another major turning point in the series for that very reason, and it's why this episode is hugely important. I mean, the story of the crew venturing inside of him, while not original, is made immensely interesting because of their unique reactions to the inside of Frye, and the comedy gotten from that.
But what clearly makes this episode stand out is the romance between Leela and Frye, once again center stage, now more than ever before.
As I've already stated, their love story is truly one of the best in all of media, and episodes that focus on it are some of the best in the entire show. But this one, more than any other, brings the episode's main concept together with their love story best in my opinion. You get a true sense that they have a real connection, but there are a bit of missing pieces that are preventing them from going all the way with it. From this point forward, it becomes even more interesting to see how their relationship develops, and if Frye can truly find the level of maturity Leela wants in a man, finally win her heart. All in all, what an incredible episode to be the first one I ever saw, and it's clear to see why I would become a fanatic of the show for years to come. Number 3. The Luck of the Fryrish.
Oh god, we're about to go there, are we? Well, let me just get these on standby.
The story of this one is one of the most beautiful and emotional episodes in the entire show, and is without a doubt the episode that affects me the most, getting me to cry literally every time. There are a lot of episodes of the show that get me really emotional. In fact, I think that's one quality Futurama has over most other animated shows like it. It is able to construct plot lines that know how to truly tug at your heartstrings, while still being entertainingly captivating from beginning to end.
I'll have a horse Coke. Horse Pepsi, okay?
Nay.
Oh, and naturally it's funny, but you should expect that with Futurama by now.
So this episode begins with the crew at a horse race track. It's kind of funny that horse racing is still pretty much the same in the future, except their ability to tell who won the race is down to a quantum level. Frye's having the worst luck in the world. His horses all losing their races, especially after Bender drugs them in their pens backstage. Frye's last dollar flies away and lands on a telephone wire, motivating him to go up and get it only to be electrocuted and then struck by lightning. Then, he falls into a trash can.
That is one unlucky guy.
The rest of this episode takes a turn where it intercuts some moments between Frye and his older brother Yancey, played by Tom Kenny, this being his first appearance along with their parents. The flashbacks show that Yancey has always been jealous of Frye ever since he was born, even wanting the name Philip for himself. In the present, Frye reveals to the crew that he once had possession of a 7-leaf clover, which appropriately gave him more luck than he ever had before, allowing him to beat his brother in basketball and breakdancing better than him. One day, Yancey tried to steal the clover, so Frye went and hid it in a record vault in his basement. Also, for some reason, his dad is a Y2K fanatic, which I always thought was a really funny running gag.
Well, he better keep his hands off these bananas. Gonna need them when the radiation turns us all into monkeys.
Frye leads Bender and Leela through the decaying ruins of old New York to find his home where he grew up, and to hopefully find the clover. We get some nice moments of Frye reminiscing about his old neighborhood. I love when Frye gets these moments to himself because it allows him to get emotional, which I can connect to as a New Yorker from that time period. They make it to Frye's home, open the record vault, and find the Breakfast Club soundtrack.
You mean Breakfast Club sandwich?
Unfortunately, they don't find the clover, and Frye leaves disappointed. His disappointment turns to rage when they spot a statue statue dedicated to Philip J. Frye. Only it's not Frye. It's his brother Yancey, in possession of the 7-leaf clover. Back at Planet Express, the professor shows a video to Frye about his brother's life after Frye got frozen. They learn that Yancey essentially lived out all of his brother's dreams, including his biggest dream of being the first man on Mars. They then are told of where Yancey is buried in a graveyard that orbits Earth.
We're going grave robbing.
I'll get my kit!
At this point in the episode, we've switched from flashbacks about Frye in the past to flashbacks of his family after he's been frozen unbeknownst to them. As Yancey prepares for his wedding, he goes to the basement to look for records to play at the reception, where he stumbles upon a picture of Frye drew, showing him being the first person on Mars, and also the 7-leaf clover itself. When we cut back to the present, the crew has made it to the graveyard. They eventually make it to the massive monument for Yancey, or so we thought, because Frye clears off some moss, revealing some more words on the stone. We then cut to the final flashback showing Yancey with his son, who he gives the clover to, saying it belonged to someone very special. His wife then gives him the okay to name their son, and Yancey names him Philip J. Frye, in honor of his little brother, who he misses every day. He says that he loves Philip, meaning his son, and Frye, and he always will. As the shot pans to the drawing we saw earlier, now hung above his son's crib. Then, if the tears weren't flowing already, we cut back to the present where Frye finishes reading the monument.
Here lies Philip J. Frye, named for his uncle, to carry on his spirit.
It's just so sad. Frye always loved his brother, but it turns out he loved him deep inside, and they never got to tell each other they loved each other. It's just so sad. Alright. Pull yourself together, J-Ruff. It's just a cartoon. The sad cartoon!
Okay, so this really hits me hard every time, more than any other emotional moment. Maybe it's because I grew up wanting an older sibling for many years, I don't know, but they convey the story so well of the rivalry Yancey and Frye have. They really get you to believe that Yancey could have taken Frye's identity. I mean, until this episode, we've been led to believe that nobody cared about Frye in the 20th century. I mean, for crying out loud, this is the first episode we actually see his family and find out that isn't the case. His family openly talk about how much they miss him dearly. It's a relatable thing for anyone who watches. We've all lost people, and there are some whom we never got to tell our true feelings to before losing them. Whatever the circumstances might be, the writers of this episode understood those feelings well enough to make the perfect episode covering this kind of trauma. In the end, Frye gets a happy ending, leaving the clover with his nephew with the knowledge that he was able to accomplish the things he never could.
If I was just doing a list of episodes that emotionally connected with me the most, this would easily be number 1, but there are just 2 episodes of the show that I just simply enjoy watching more.
I know many of you would probably argue that Jurassic Bark is a more emotional story, being about Frye's dog who never gave up on him returning after being frozen. And while that episode does affect me a bit when I watch, it's not one I find as entertaining as anything else on the list, so I'm sorry to say it won't be making it on here.
But hey, we're almost done with this list. So let's just head to our very close runner-up.
Number 2. The Farnsworth Parabox. This episode is just balls to the wall from the very beginning, featuring the entire crew.
But what's better than the entire crew? Well, multiple versions of them, that's what.
So it begins with explosions being caused by whatever the professor is doing, coupled with him screaming out to whatever deity out there to help him. This comes at the same time Frye is trying to ask out Leela for like the millionth time. Leela's just giving Frye excuses as she always has before, yet Frye is still persistent. Later, the professor has good news.
I'm still technically alive, yes, but I need you to dispose of this crazy-ass experiment that almost killed me.
The experiment turns out to be a box, which piques everyone's interest as to what's inside, even the professor not knowing himself and warning them not to look inside. Hermes puts Leela in charge of keeping people from opening the box for the evening, who easily tricks Frye and Bender into thinking they stole it off of her by grabbing it from a vent overhead.
Ow, it's hot! The butter in my pocket is melting!
Okay, no joke. I say that pretty much every time I'm feeling particularly hot on a hot day. It's one of my favorite lines in the entire series on so many levels.
After keeping those bozos occupied, Leela herself becomes curious as to what's inside the box and flips a coin to decide whether she'll look into it or not. It lands on heads, and so she opens the box and falls inside, coming out of a blue box right after. She's then greeted by a black-haired Frye, a gold Bender, the professor with stitches in his head, and a red-haired Leela.
Clone, robot, or long-lost twin? Taking all bets. I also offer video poker.
The red-haired Leela goes inside the box and gets the rest of the purple-haired Leela's crew to the other side, both sides discovering that each professor had created a box containing the other's universe. Both universes are parallel to one another, being identical in some ways with minor differences, the biggest being that coin flips have opposite outcomes. Initially they are distrusting of one another, but are urged to get to know each other's doppelgangers. This universe's Leela and Frye reveal to their counterparts that they're married and take them out on a date. Universe B's Leela states that Frye would always ask her out and she'd make up excuses, just like Universe A's Leela. But one day she flipped a coin to decide if she would go out with Frye, and it was heads. On that magical date, they fell in love.
1 year later, I gave Leela a diamond scrunchie, and we were married. 1 year later, I got beat up at a Neil Diamond concert by a guy named Scrunchy.
The others seem to get along with their doppelgangers pretty well, my favorite interactions being between the two Benders and the two Professors. The two Benders get along well due to their mutual love of themselves, and the Professors bond over experiments they did or did not do.
Well, getting the brain out was the easy part. The hard part was getting the brain out. Oh, you!
The Zoidbergs also bond over how they're always looked down upon by the other coworkers and plot to steal the box. The blue Zoidberg knowing where it was hidden. When the professors go to retrieve the box later on, they find that it's missing. So seeing as they have no other option, they attempt to create another box containing Universe A. And we get to see what actually happened that made the professor yell in the opening, which is fucking hilarious to me. Showing he was just dramatically yelling, they start looking through boxes for their universe when Universe B Hermes shows up. Hermes being the only one without a counterpart says he was about to hurl the box into the sun. They then realize that Universe A Hermes is probably already on his way to do this with none of them there to stop him.
Like Granny said, if you want a box hurled into the sun, you got to do it yourself. God rest her zombie bones.
The Zoidbergs walk in with Universe A's box and they escape into one of the random universes in the many boxes now scattered everywhere. It now becomes a mad scramble for every character to travel through each universe in order to find the crabs and save their world.
You might say it becomes a multiverse of madness?
Okay, but seriously, as far as I can recall, Futurama was one of the first shows to delve into multiverse theory, back when it was a fresh concept and not run into the ground by everyone else in the entertainment industry. To this day, I feel like it's one of the best interpretations of it because each universe they visit is interesting and goofy enough to be memorable for me. Especially with the characters of this show being as developed as they are with distinct personalities this late into the show's history, you're able to just tell non-stop jokes without the need for explanation on each universe. We still understand how each character would act no matter if it's the Leprechaun universe,
if you haven't seen Pirate Universe, Faith and Bagora!
The professors eventually catch up to the Zoidbergs in Universe 420, a hippie universe where there seems to be only one box. Disgusted by this universe's professor,
get a job!
They all go back to Universe B to jump in the Universe A box to stop Hermes right as he's about to send them all into the sun. And possibly the funniest moment in the entire episode, Hermes actually takes a minute to decide whether he still wants to launch them into the sun, even with them all right in front of him. Thankfully he doesn't, and they are all free to go back to their universes, trading each box so that each universe has possession of the box containing their own universe.
This episode could have easily been #1 on this list because every second of it is as entertaining as the one I put up there. It was almost kind of like a coin flip for me.
This is hands down one of, if not my favorite concept for an episode. Sure, multiverses are so overdone now as I previously said, but this one still stands tall among the best interpretations of the concept that I feel should not be lost to time. I've watched it so many times it might be the episode I've seen the most next to my #1 pick, but please, if you love sci-fi, multiverses, or just good dumb fun, I implore you to go see this fantastic episode.
We didn't see anything. Ever.
Now before we walk on sunshine with the #1 episode on this list, as always, I've got some honorable mentions I want to give a special shout out to. And because this is a top 20 list instead of a 10, I've decided to include 5 this time. So...
let's go already!
Why Must I Be a Crustacean in Love is the second Futurama episode ever I watched after Parasites Lost. It's also the first Zoidberg-centric episode, taking us to his home planet where he must prepare for their mating ritual. Like the Hermes episode from earlier, I love how they illustrate more about Zoidberg's character being a failure on his own planet as well, and the hilarity that comes with his mating interest falling for Frye when she discovers that he had been telling Zoidberg what to say. This enrages Zoidberg, who challenges Frye to claw.
A fight to the death!
And if you survive, we'll make sweet love.
The Tale of Two Santas is the second Xmas episode in the series, which I narrowly preferred in comparison to the first one. Sure, while that one has John Goodman as Santa, I feel like this one tells the better story, with much funnier moments. Plus, John DiMaggio does a great job as always. Basically, when the crew freezes the evil robot Santa on Neptune, Bender becomes the new good robot Santa. However, when Earth responds violently to his acts of kindness, he is sentenced to death for evil Santa's crimes. Santa then returns and they go on a fun rampage, ending with Santa warning Bender to never play Santa again. Straight up, this episode features some of the best jokes in the entire show.
We're also Santa Claus!
And I'm his friend Jesus.
Leela's Homeworld is another heartwarming episode that answers a question proposed at the very beginning of the series. Where did Leela come from? Turns out that she's not an alien, as she finds out her true parents are mutants who are not allowed on the surface. Seeing her as the least mutated of their kind, they bring her to the orphanarium and pass her off as an alien. After her whole life of wanting to know their parents, she finally gets to meet them in a moment that makes me cry every time.
This is the happiest moment of my life!
Cold Warriors is an episode from the Comedy Central run of the show that, much like The Luck of the Fryrish, focuses on Frye's relationship with one of his family members. In the past, Frye fell into a frozen lake while ice fishing with his dad and contracted the common cold. When his cold flares up again in the future, he reintroduces it to Earth as it had been eradicated years ago.
Oh wow, I guess vaccines do work, huh?
Back to the episode though, where this causes the entire Planet Express and its crew to be quarantined to stop its spread. They eventually escape and find a sample of the virus that had been launched into space by an old rival of Frye's after he won a science fair experiment, allowing them all to be cured. Frye's dad tells Frye that he loves him and is tough on him to prepare him for problems he couldn't even comprehend himself, quite accurately foreshadowing his son's future.
Now bundle up. I don't want you getting frozen.
Like the previous episode, Game of Tones focuses on one of Frye's family members, this time being his mom. In the future, Earth is in danger of being destroyed by a spaceship that's playing several musical notes. Frye recognizes this melody from his past but can't pinpoint from when, so he is sent back into past memories through his dreams to decipher when it occurs. However, all Frye really wants is to be able to talk with his mother for one last time. When they are finally able to locate the tone's origin and save the world, Nibbler somehow finds a way to send Frye into his mother's dream in the past, giving him one final moment with her that she will truly experience as well. And my number one favorite Futurama episode is... War is the H word. This episode is fucking incredible. It's the most funny, most quotable, most captivating, most entertaining, most amazing episode of Futurama I have ever seen, period.
It's simply a masterpiece of an episode, illustrating that the writers have complete understanding of their characters and how to portray them in this clever scenario.
This episode begins with Frye and Bender signing up for the military when they find out they can get a minuscule discount, before they can take advantage of it by quitting and playing the military for chumps.
War were declared.
So they are forced to join the army and go to war with whatever foe Earth demands of them. In this case, it's a lone planet with no natural resources. Seriously, by the end, we never even find out why Earth was attacking them in the first place. We're literally the invading force, invading for no reason whatsoever.
Why is this godforsaken planet worth dying for?
Don't ask me, you're the one who's going to be dying.
And yes, this is easily Zap Brannigan's best episode by far. He's such an idiot in this one, placed in charge of the entire army, putting them through rigorous training and showing little care for their survival.
The key to victory is the element of surprise. Surprise!
Yeah, I'm gonna be showing a lot of clips for this one, and can you blame me? It's my favorite episode, and I simply don't think my words alone do it enough justice.
With Frye and Bender in the army and women not allowed to join due to Zach? He's a psychomaniac. With Frye and Bender in the army and women not allowed to join due to Zap's sexual advances on them, Leela enlists disguised as a man named Lee Lemon and fools everyone, especially Zap, who begins to question his own sexuality when he finds himself attracted to this new recruit.
That young man fills me with hope, and some other emotions that are weird and deeply confusing.
When it's time for battle, they all discover that the enemy is a race of bouncing balls, who attack in ball-based maneuvers, literally sounding like dodgeballs when they attack. Frye cowers in fear in the battle, allowing the troop to be overwhelmed by the balls. When they roll a bomb into the troop's vicinity, Bender sacrifices his body by letting it blow up in his chest cavity. Bender is taken to the field hospital as the music and shots from the episode pay tribute to the show MASH.
Show that several family members and older friends watched as I was growing up, which connects to me on a different level, but I digress.
Here we see Zoidberg as one of the doctors stationed there where he's taunted by Eyehawk, a robot that also pays tribute to MASH, being a parody of Hawkeye Pierce from the show.
Are you ready to operate, Doctor?
I'd love to, but first I have to perform surgery.
That's my joke! I'll kill you!
While a bit part, this is one of my favorite Zoidberg side plots in the whole series. Every character doesn't play a big role in this episode, but the ones that do shine brighter than in any other. So Bender is fixed up, and Frye is demoted to the lowest position in the service, being Kif's assistant.
That doesn't sound too bad.
You'll speak when I tell you to, you filthy worm!
This is even the first episode we hear Frye sing Walkin' on Sunshine, something he would be known for throughout the series. He does this in one of my favorite scenes where he's washing Kif in the showers, while Kif is washing Zap. After Bender is all fixed up, Zap and Nixon reveal to those in the showers that they've implanted a bomb inside of Bender that will go off when he says the word he says the most. This is one of my favorite sequences in the show where Zap shows them a countdown of the top 10 words that Bender uses.
I think you're starting to see where I got my fascination with countdowns from.
Predictably, after Bender's most used word is revealed to be ass, he is sent to negotiate with the Ball's leaders, the Brain Balls, with the head of Henry Kissinger.
We have all seen too many body bags on ball sacks.
In the scenes that follow, we get some of the best ball-related puns and humor you'll ever see in the show, as well as Bender literally saying all of his most used words, but playing up saying the word ass to comedic effect. Of course, he doesn't know about the bomb going off if he says ass, but conveniently he chooses now to narrowly avoid saying it.
Mwah, simply masterful writing.
So Frye goes to save Bender and runs into Lee Lemon, who gets ahead of him by taking out the guards before him. As Zap confronts them, getting jealous by their friendship, Lemon beats him down and reveals that it's been Leela all along.
Oh God, I've never been so happy to be beaten up by a woman.
Frye overcomes his cowardice and makes it to the negotiation where he warns Bender of the bomb inside him, and the means to unleash its power on the world. With that in mind, Bender uses it to threaten the Brain Balls into surrendering their home planet to Earth, thus bringing the war to an end. Once home, the professor cannot remove the bomb from Bender, so they instead change the word to the word Bender says the least, and the episode ends with Bender saying all the words it could possibly be until he finally sets it off.
Compassion. Shrimp toast. Antiquing? I'm alright.
Like I said, there's no better Futurama episode than this. It simply just does all the right things to make it a perfect episode in my mind. Even though I could argue that the Farnsworth Parabox does this as well, I have to give this one the edge for two main reasons. One being that it plays with our knowledge of the show with the listing of the words Bender frequently uses to see if we've really been paying attention all this time. And two,
it features motherfucking Zap Brannigan, who I said was already one of my favorite characters in the entire show, and that adds a hell of a lot of bonus points to whatever episode he's included in.
Even when new episodes are released, I don't see anything topping this. But a man can dream though, I suppose. But until then, War is the H Word will definitively be my favorite episode of my favorite show, Futurama.
And that was my list, guys. Now I'm sorry for how long this one took to get out, but I didn't foresee how much I was going to actually say about all these episodes. I mean, the script was literally like 62 pages long, totaling at about like 16,000 words. What can I say? I love this show. It seriously might be the most effort I put into a video at this point for this channel. So, if you guys like this video, please leave a like and share it with your friends. In the comments below, tell me your opinions on this list and what episodes of Futurama you'd put in your top 20 favorites. And don't forget to please subscribe and hit the bell as well for updates on more videos like this. Next time, I'm going back to reviews, and I'm reviewing the second game I ever Let's Played, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys all for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and farewell from the world of tomorrow!
Car as fast as it yet. However, seeing it in action several times before you get to use it yourself builds up that internal hype, similarly to Mr. Burns' limo. Then when you finally do get to control it, it's hard to put down. Sure, it's really frail, but it controls like a dream, and even till the very end of the game, you'll be hard-pressed to find many faster than it. Plus, listen to its horn.
It sounds like laser beams!
Help, it's not good.
Oh yeah, and even if you can barely tell he's in there, you get Professor Frink as a driver with you in some levels. Now I say some levels because sometimes the bonus mission characters don't appear with you in their car for some reason. I'm not sure why this happens, but when you get Frink, you get some of the most fun dialogue on the road while controlling one of the coolest cars ever.
I'm so happy you followed with the dialing, the choosing, and the selection of the Frink.
All you ever do is complain.